And joining us now with more on the expansion of the war in Gaza on day 677 is Clifford May, founder and president of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good to be with you.
So we're nearly 2 years into this war in Gaza, and Israel seems to be stuck. On the one hand, not really advancing enough within Gaza, and on the other, going back and forth, playing to Hamas's demands to somehow reach the elusive ceasefire deal. So how do you see this all playing out? Is there an end to this war in sight?
The war that is being waged against Israel, there's no end in sight. It's been going on since 1948 in various forms. You have a particular battle that's been going on since October 7th, 2023, and it's difficult. Why? Largely because Hamas continues to hold hostages. You think, we think, maybe 20 of them are still alive. Very likely. Many or most of them are in tunnels underneath Gaza City. Gaza City is a very crowded environment to go in there. There's two possibilities. One is the evacuation of the citizens to safe areas. I think that's what Bibi Netanyahu has in mind. And then fighting. You don't want to fight door to door with 1 million people, many of them civilians, in your way, being used as human shields by Hamas. Hamas does not seem to be interested in a ceasefire, does not seem to be interested in negotiations, and that's largely because, in part because at least, our European friends. Marco Rubio was very clear about this. Once the Europeans say, you know, if there's no ceasefire, we're going to recognize a Palestinian state, Hamas says, great, there'll be no ceasefire, and then we get a Palestinian state. It's not good diplomatic practice by our European friends.
I want to get back to the issue of the European countries in a moment, but, you know, the world and even the United States, the Trump administration, are continuing to talk about humanitarian aid, the humanitarian situation in Gaza, and the end of the war. While Jerusalem is talking about full military victory, continuing the war, are the United States and Israel on the same page here?
I think they basically are. Look, President Trump would like to see a ceasefire as quickly as possible. And I think that his envoy, Steve Witkoff, had been making progress towards that end when the Europeans again decided to come in and say, let's reward Hamas and for not being willing to release hostages, for not being willing to have a ceasefire, for not laying down their arms. Look, I shouldn't have to say this on an Israeli program, but I do certainly on American programs. This war could end today if Hamas just released the hostages it abducted and is holding, ongoing war crimes, torturing, in some cases starving, releasing videos because they're proud of what they're doing. All they have to do is lay down their arms. And by the way, I think the Israeli government would say, we will, in exchange for that, we'll let Hamas leaders who are alive have safe passage out of the country, and we'll release maybe 1,000 convicted terrorists from prison. But again, that's not going to happen right now. It's very difficult. The Israelis have a very special relationship based on religion and culture and tradition with those who are being held hostage and the need to ransom them. If the Israelis are willing to sacrifice them, they could probably defeat Hamas much more quickly, couldn't they?
Absolutely. It's a very controversial issue here in Israel as well. And, you know, I want to talk a little bit now about the European countries. You know, when Israel announced its decision to expand the war, it was met with significant international backlash, especially from these European countries who do, as you mentioned, seem to be rewarding Hamas for some inexplicable reason, we'll say. So far, the United States is one of the few countries still standing by Israel. But I do want to ask, you know, the Trump administration, would it be fully on board with the expansion of this war, even if it takes another year or longer? I mean, Israel's sort of international legitimacy is sort of running out. So how do you see this playing out?
Well, look, the longer it goes, the more difficult it is, and there's huge amounts of propaganda I'm from the media. You know, my background is media, but I'm shocked to see the way much of the international media presents the issues in Israel, presents the issues that are taking place in Gaza. We have known for a very long time that if you are, because you wear a vest that says press, doesn't mean you're really a journalist. And even if you are a journalist in Gaza, you do as Hamas says, either because you support Hamas or because you're intimidated by Hamas. President Trump, I do think, understands the situation pretty well. He wants to see, clearly does not want to see Hamas empowered or victorious in any sense. And look, Hamas is a shadow of what it used to be, but it's still using the hostages, still using Gazan civilians as human shields, still has the Gazans as hostages as well, if you want to think about it that way. And I think that's a fair way to think about it. You know, what happens after 3 months of intense fighting and bad publicity? I can't predict that. I'm not sure President Trump himself can predict that. Maybe First Lady Melania can predict that. It would be good to get this over as quickly as possible, but the reason this war is not ending, or at least not ending in peace, ending in a ceasefire as quickly, it's Hamas. The reason is it's based on Hamas. It's their fault. Every life, every death, all the tragedy, this all comes from Hamas. And we should never forget, from Hamas's backers, most particularly the Islamic Republic of Iran, which has been, since 1979, outspokenly genocidal. That's what death to Israel means. It's what death to America means.
Clifford May, thank you so much for your analysis today.
My pleasure.